Head2Head, Walther PPQ, Walther PPX. Okay, let's talk just a little bit about ergonomics, general overall ergonomics. First thing, I'm going to kind of break it into two categories. There's the ergonomics of the grip and the shooting, and then there's the ergonomics of the controls, actually running and operating the controls. To me, those are two different categories. So the first one is the grip and overall shooting ergonomics. Both are very good. The PPQ is, borderline on, perfection. The PPX is not far behind it, but I give, and I'm going to rate some of these things on a scale of 1 to 10. I think it's just the easiest way. That scale is pretty intuitive to people and makes sense. So, ergonomics, the PPQ, again, to me is just about perfection. The PPQ also comes with 3 back straps that you can select from so that you can tailor fit it to a large degree, small, medium, and large, and they are marked on the bottom, small, medium, and large, S, M, or L. Right back there, probably can't see that. So the ergonomics are really good, and there's some adjustability there. So to me, PPQ ergonomics for grip and shooting is a 10. You've got a nice, a good deep grip tang right here. I just find the grip and the shooting ergonomics to be, to me, the best. Doesn't mean there aren't other guns that are equal to it, because I think there are, but I think it's a good solid 10, at least to me. Another thing you've got is you've got a nice recess here at the back of the trigger guard so that you can really get those fingers up in there and really get a good high grip. So you can bring the back of your hand up high into the grip tang, and that middle finger can come up really nice and high under the trigger guard. So a 10 for the PPQ. Now, what about the PPX? Well, the PPX, there's a couple things different about the PPX, and I haven't talked about the stippling yet. Both of these guns have virtually the same stippling in slightly different patterns, but it's essentially the same stippling. They both have finger grooves molded into the front strap of the grip. They both have the dogleg style back strap. There's a bit of a difference there, though, and one is that the backstrap on the PPX, this dogleg shape, is a little bit more pronounced. It's a little more drastic in nature than it is on the PPQ. And let me see if I can really give you a good side-by-side on that. I'll just put a little bit of distance between them here so you can see the shapes. But that protrusion is a little bit more drastic on the PPX. Now here's the other piece of that. The other half of that situation is that on the PPX there are no adjustable backstrap parts. This is one solid molded piece, and there is no way to adjust that. I mean, I suppose you could add to it, like Glock does. Glock will provide you add-ons that'll make it bigger, but if you wanted to make it smaller, you could not do that. So what you see is what you get, and what you're stuck with the PPX. Now, the good news is I don't find it bad. It fits my hand well. I like the ergonomics of it. The one thing I did notice, and I pointed out while I was doing the review for the PPX when I was shooting it, is that a little bit of more pronounced dogleg, if it's hot and your hands are sweaty, as it really was the day I was doing a lot of the shooting for the review, this can become a bit of a pivot point, and it can actually work against your grip. You know, the gun wants to slide around, and it kind of, this sticks out so far that it kind of prevents the rest of your hand from getting up in here as well as it should with a natural grip. So not quite as good. So because of that, I'm going to give the PPX an 8 on a scale of 10, and we recall I gave the PPQ a 10. So PPQ is a 10, PPX is an 8 as far as grip ergonomics. Alright, so what do these pistols weigh? Well, we could do it the easy way. We could just look up the specs, but that wouldn't be near as much fun, would it? Besides, I have an ulterior motive. I do want to check two things. So, first, PPQ. What's the weight of this pistol? And I'm actually going to make a note here. I'm going to write this down. PPQ weighs 1 pound. 5.45 ounces. PPX weighs 1 pound. 7.65 ounces. This is what I really want to do, and I have not done this before. I promise. This will be the very first time. We'll be right here live. I want to weigh the slide assembly in its entirety. There's a reason I want to check this. I have a theory, and I could be completely wrong, but so the slide is 15 point, now make up your mind scale, 15.3 ounces, let's call it. PPQ, same thing. And it weighs 1 pound, 0.35 ounces. And that is what I expected to see. Not the numbers. I mean, I didn't have any idea what the numbers would be. What I did expect was that the PPX slide was going to be slightly heavier than the PPQ. Okay, so why is that important? Why is it important what just the slide weighs on each of these guns? Why did I want to compare that? Well, the reason I wanted to compare that was because I had developed a theory of my own that the slide on the PPX was going to be heavier than the slide of the PPQ. The bore axis of the PPX is notably higher than the bore axis of the PPQ. Bore axis of the PPQ, the bore is just about exactly in line with this depression, this cup-shaped depression. PPX, the bore is pretty much right in line with where the point of this pen is. Now look at where your grip tang is. So you've got a grip tang here on the PPQ. This is where the top of your hand is going to be when you're gripping the pistol, and we run that across, and look, your hand is considerably lower when you go to the PPX. So there's a difference there, and I'm going to say that difference is probably 1/4 of an inch. That would lead you to believe that you should have more muzzle flip and more perceived recoil from the PPX due to that. And I found during my shooting that that was not the case. In fact, and I'll mention this again when I go through items, but I found that my perception of recoil management was that recoil management was actually a little bit better on the PPX than it is on the PPQ. Just ever so slightly, 10% maybe. And that again is just complete touchy-feely perception on my part. So that was the point I wanted to make. The theory that I came up with because of my perception was that, I'll bet you the slide is heavier on the PPX because so many other things are so similar between these two pistols that, for me to perceive a less recoil, less felt recoil on the PPX versus the PPQ, and especially when you throw in the fact that it has a notably higher bore axis, was that that slide must weigh more. And it does. And that is absorbing energy. Okay, let's compare the magazines for a minute. The PPQ takes a 15-round magazine. It's a double stack magazine. And the PPX takes a 16-round magazine, which is also double stack. The PPX magazine, as you might expect from one that takes more rounds, is a little bit longer. So this is the PPQ magazine. It's got really good witness holes in the back, you know, marked with the number of rounds. It's well made. It's a stamped all metal. As far as the way this one is made, excellent. You know, no problem. I have not taken it apart to do anything with it, but well made magazine. PPX magazine, again, larger, also good quality stamped. It's got good witness holes, but they're on the sides instead of the back. One side of the PPX magazine has the odd numbered rounds. The other side of the PPX magazine has the even numbered rounds. One of the other things I did notice though, and this is going to be maybe not what you expect, I like the way the magazine fits in the gun better for the PPX than I do for the PPQ. PPQ is right here, and it has a, you know, fairly standard flat base plate. The PPX has, you know, those extensions on the side of the base plate that come up into onto the magazine, but the way it's designed to fit into the gun is more aesthetically pleasing, and it's perfectly flush on the bottom. Whereas with the PPQ, you have, it's a more traditional, you know, and you're pretty much flush, but it just doesn't, you know, doesn't have quite as good an aesthetic, oddly. Not bad. I mean, if you just look at that by itself, you probably never think a thing of it, but comparing it against the PPX, I don't know, to my eye, I think the aesthetics on the PPX are a little nicer, the way the mag fits. The ergonomics of the controls are extremely similar, but also in some cases different. PPQ M2 has a traditional magazine release. It is extremely nice, as they really got it right. That is one of the nicest magazine releases I've ever used. Ergonomically, it's great because you don't have to change your grip much, even somebody with, you know, little baby hands like me, and it's got a nice positive ejection, and it's just easy to push. There's no discomfort in doing it. So I like that control. The PPX is almost identical in terms of the magazine release button. Slide lock, slide release lever on the PPQ is an ambidextrous configuration. It is very easy to find and operate with your thumb. It's a very long control. It comes way back here. So it's right there where your thumb is, and it's easy, very easy to operate. The PPX slide release is less easy, for me at least, to operate. You basically have magazine release, you have slide lock, slide release, and then the other control you have is the takedown. And the takedown for the PPX is a little different than the PPQ. Let's look at the PPQ first. PPQ takedown is right here. This is the Glock style takedown, and that's been demonstrated in my review of that gun. PPX uses a takedown lever. Two totally different methods. Both work very fine. Both are fast and easy to use. So in the review for the PPQ, I did some trigger pull measurements, and I actually compared that to a Glock 17. But I have not done any trigger pull measurements yet for the PPX, so I'm going to do that and compare. And I will do a string of 10, and then I will make a comparison and we'll look at the results. Alright, let's see what our average is. Average for 10 pulls is 5 pounds 3 ounces. Very, very similar. Almost exact. What was it for the PPQ? PPQ was 5 pounds 3 ounces. No kidding. So next time somebody tells you that they prefer the PPQ over the PPX because of the trigger pull, you can tell them whatever word you'd like to tell people that are telling you something that just isn't so. I wanted to just compare the two barrels. In what ways are they different? So here we have the two barrels. The PPQ barrel is on the right, PPX barrel here on the left. And the first thing you notice is that the PPX barrel is a little more substantial in terms of its heft. The PPQ barrel is very streamlined, actually even more so than for, say, a Glock barrel. The lugs and the feed ramp extension beneath the chamber on this barrel are very, very low profile. Probably be the way I would describe them. On the PPX, that same configuration is much more pronounced. So you've got a lug that is really goes down low and deep. Got a very deep notched barrel lug, and you've got a steeper and deeper feed ramp. It's an interesting feed ramp comparison in that the PPQ feed ramp, again, much like the traditional modern pistol barrel feed ramps that we're used to seeing, and it works great, but the PPX feed ramp here on our left is actually, almost looks more tacked on, if you will, the way it's assembled there. And if you notice, it's got more polish to it. It's got this additional sort of pre-ramp area. And I know I showed this previously when I did an in-depth review of the PPX, but the mouth of that chamber is really very well beveled out, and that's compared to the PPQ. So the PPQ right here, PPX right here. Okay, I talked about recoil management a little bit. Obviously for each one of these guns when we were taking a detailed look at them and reviewing them each, but to do a comparison, I found it to be very interesting, and it was kind of a challenge to myself to really pay attention and really draw a comparison and a conclusion. This is going to be completely perception based. This is very much an opinion, but hey, it's just an opinion. But I found that let's use the 10 scale. I would give the PPQ an 8, and I would give the PPX a 9. I found both guns easy to sight, easy to shoot, and very accurate. So the sights work just perfectly fine on both. But there are some differences. They're both 3-dot configuration. The PPQ here on the left has smaller dots, and you also have more airspace between the rear notch and the front blade. That front blade does not fill that rear notch. There is some airspace there. Some people like that. Some people hate it. I don't really like it or hate it. I found that I shot just fine with it. The PPX has larger dots and less airspace. The front sight blade does a much better job of filling the rear sight notch when you sight this gun. The larger dots can give you a little bit faster pickup. Neither of these guns has night sights. I believe night sights are available as an option for the PPQ. I do not know, and if I learn the answer to this, I will include that information either down here on the screen or below in the information, whether or not night sights are available for the PPX. Obviously there's going to be aftermarket products for both, but from Walther I don't know. The sights on the PPX, which is the less expensive gun, are steel. The sights on the PPQ, which is the more expensive gun, are polymer. The sights are adjustable for windage. The rear sight is adjustable for windage on the PPQ. It could be adjustable on the PPX too. You could drift it. Both of these are in a dovetail. The front sights are both staked in place, so there's no adjustment to be made there. The sights on the PPX, let me turn this, give you a profile. The sights on the PPX have a very nice smooth ramp to them. So they're made well for, you know, for not snagging. The sights on the PPQ have a little bit less of a ramp, more of an abutment here. Okay, and you can see, hopefully, right here where my little pinky is pointed, there's a little screw right there for your adjustment for windage. And again, this does not have a windage adjustment. However, it is dovetail mounted, and you could drift it if you needed to. I found them both to be very accurate right out of the box, so there was no adjustment necessary. But so, you know, if it's important to you to have a snag-free sight, favor PPX. If being able to have a, you know, put a tool on your sight real easily and do some windage adjustment is more important to you, favor the PPQ. I think they refer to the PPQ as combat sights, you know, with the smaller dots and stuff. I don't have any real preference one way or the other. I'm neither pleased nor displeased, really. I find both of these guns' sights to be very adequate. Night sights would be a plus, certainly, but you know, as range guns, they're both fine. So, what am I going to score these things? Well, I'm going to score the PPQ at a 7. Okay, number one, they're not night sights, as we talked. You know, when you get in this price range, you might expect to have night sights on a gun. And the PPX, I'm going to give an 8. So 7 for the PPQ and an 8 for the PPX. So slight favor to the PPQ, or I'm sorry, slight favor to the PPX, because larger dots, easier to pick up, thicker front sight blade fills the notch, gives you a quick 3-dot sight picture without any airspace that I know bothers some people, and also the little bit lower profile design with the nice smooth ramp to make it snag free. So for that reason, I think slight edge to the PPX. All right, what about overall fit and finish? What about the quality or the perceived quality of these two guns when compared side to side? You know, does one feel cheap while the other feels, you know, better? One feel heavier, one feel lighter? You know, you are able to tell which one of these two guns is more expensive. If I were to hand you these two handguns and you were to, you know, fondle them and caress them and work the action and just, you know, grip them and dry fire them, you're going to be able to tell which one costs more. And you're going to be able to tell that because the fit and finish is just a little bit better. Probably, I'm going to say, actually I shouldn't say fit, because I think they're both extremely well engineered and extremely well manufactured. So I don't want to imply that there's any imperfections in the fit. So finish and materials, you know, are probably just a notch higher on the PPQ. As you should expect, because the PPQ is a significantly more expensive gun. I mean, it is about a $200, you know, $200 more than the PPX. So, you know, if you're going to pay $200 more, you expect good performance, you expect good reliability and accuracy and all those things, but you also want it to look and feel like it costs $200 more than the other gun. That's just the way we are. Some of the little things that you'll notice is, you know, the polymer, for whatever reason, the polymer frame almost feels nicer on the PPQ. And I, you know, I'll never be able to explain why I'm saying that, but you just have to feel the two, I guess, to get it. And then there's just the little things. You know, both of them have the really good coating on the material, on the metal and their slides. The PPQ adds the serrations at the top of the slide. Those are there to reduce glare and give you a better sight picture. They also have some aesthetic value, there's no doubt about it. PPX does not have that. It has just a completely bare and plain slide top. PPX is also, as we've talked about, very blocky. It's very chunky, you know, where you have the nice rounded slide top. But for overall fit and finish, I'm going to give PPQ a 9, and I'm going to give PPX an 8. So even though I've definitely called out a distinction between the two, and I've said that you can perceive the difference, it's not a great difference. It's only, to me, it's only the difference between an 8 and a 9. So we have a 9 for the PPQ and an 8 for the PPX. All right, what about the aesthetics? What about the overall appearance, the looks, the sexy quality, however you want to term it, whatever word works best for you? Well, the PPX is a little bit like an ugly puppy. It might not have the sleek lines and the gentle curves of its litter mates, but, you know, once it licks your nose, you're going to love it just as much. And that's really how I can best describe the PPX. I don't personally find the PPX displeasing to look at, but I do understand why some people do. And for that reason, and because to all of us, to some degree or another, looks do matter, I have to rate the PPX out of 5. Middle of the road. I neither love it nor hate it, so I'm giving it a good solid 5. Your mileage may vary. Now the PPQ, I think, has more traditional beauty in terms of nice aesthetics. You know, it's more curved, it's more sleek, it's an overall more pleasing look, especially, you know, in line with today's modern polymer framed handguns. So I'm going to give the PPQ a good solid 9. So just to compare heights, you know, is pretty easy to do. The PPX is probably a good solid ½ inch higher than the PPQ. Most of that I would attribute to that extra round of capacity, of ammunition capacity. Which one would you say is the narrower? Which one the wider? Now the PPX, we've already decided, looks like a blockhead, right? It makes a Glock look streamlined. The PPQ, on the other hand, is very nice aesthetically. It's got a nice modern, sleek look. It's got that triangular, you know, sort of wide at the bottom, tapered to the top type of slide. PPX, on the other hand, is just a big old hunk of square for the most part. Let me show you something interesting. The widest part of the PPQ is at the slide lock, slide release lever, which is the widest part of most guns, most handguns. But because this is an ambidextrous slide release, and because they have a little bit of width to them, that puts the gun at 1.348 according to my measurement here. Try and take the glare out of that. Right? So let's call it 1 3/8 inches. Almost. Not quite. Almost. Now, the widest part right here again at the slide lock, and I've got airspace. I'm going to bring that in. 1.237. Are you seeing that? 1.244, 1.238. I'm trying also not to get it down into the serrations of the slide. That wouldn't be fair or accurate. So it looks like we're at, you know, depending on, I'm doing it at an angle so that I can't put the caliper down into a serration there. 1.225. So that is, so we're less than 1 1/4 inches, and here we're almost 1 3/8 inches. That's a significant difference. And the PPX is the thinner one. Now again, even though you know that, you just saw the measurement, you just saw me do it, and it's still, your eyes will lie to you. Another comparison or contrast between the PPQ and the PPX is the action type. We've talked about that before. I don't want to beat that dead horse, but the PPX is a hammer-fired, categorized as double action only, although it does not have a double action available to you without the slide being racked to cock it. So you do have to rack the slide in order to cock this gun. So it's not a true double action in that sense. Double action to me means I can pull the trigger with a full heavy double action pull and cock the hammer and fire it. This one works a little differently, but when you do, right now it is in the it's cocked, and the hammer is flush with the back of the slide. And when we go to fire it, I've just moved the take up, so that's when I take up the slack on the trigger, you can see the hammer come back, and then when I break the shot, that's it. So when it's uncocked, as it is now, you see that the hammer is actually down inside, and when it's cocked, the hammer is then flush with the back. So that's just a distinction between the two, the action types. All right, but here's another thing I wanted to demonstrate that I noticed right away with the PPX, and I cannot shoot this gun without thinking about it, and that is, let me cock it. I want you to watch this hammer and the rear sights and tell me when I do this that you're not seeing Beaker from the Muppets. See? Now if you go get yourself a PPX, every time you shoot it, you're going to be thinking about Beaker, aren't you? Another comparison / observation of differences between these two guns. What do you see differently here? You're looking at the PPQ behind the PPX. PPX is here out front. Notice anything different? All right, let me give you a hint. Look for the extractor. The extractor on the PPQ is an external extractor, quite a long one, actually, as extractors go. The PPX has an internal extractor. So just an interesting difference of design is right there, inside, internal. Both the PPQ and the PPX are equipped with a modern rail. Both of these will take Picatinny or Weaver style accessories, such as a light or laser or bayonet or coffee maker or whatever you feel the need to hang off of the front of them. One thing to note is that the PPX has more available rail space than the PPQ by about a ½ inch. I measured them, and the PPX is very close to 2 inches of usable space. PPQ is right at about 1½ inches of usable space. So advantage there. I'm not going to score that. It's, you know, that's not a plus or minus really to me, but it's certainly could be important to some people, so it's a good difference to know about. What about the accuracy? Both of these guns are extremely accurate. Both are more accurate than I'm capable of shooting them. And that's out to 10, 15 yards easy, 20 or 25 yards if you're a good shooter. Both were evaluated in detail in their respective reviews, so I don't want to rehash and reevaluate the accuracy in a comparison. That said, I did perceive a very slight edge with the PPX. Overall, I shot that pistol more consistently accurate than I did the PPQ, but by a very slim margin. And hard to say what the reasons for that could be. You know, it could be I had a better day with one than I had with another. You know, there's so many variables. So based on that, I'm going to score the PPX at a 10, and I'm going to score the PPQ at a 9. Although, you know, again, keep in mind that is incredibly subjective and based on a million variables, but, you know, it's my head-to-head comparison, so I get to do the scoring. So it should be no surprise that there's not much space between these guns in terms of the score. When you factor in value among the other differences, it really does level the playing field. That and the fact that the PPX is a much nicer pistol than many people might think. Still, there's no denying superiority. The PPQ is a much better gun all around, even at the price difference. But the scores are really close. So if I total up all of the scores, all of the totals from all of my scale of 1 to 10 ratings, PPX comes in at a 103, the PPQ at a 106. That's out of a possible 120. If each one of them had gotten a perfect score, it'd be 120. So 103 for the PPX, 106 for the PPQ is really close. So there you have it. There's my head-to-head comparison. I know a lot of this is subjective. A lot of people might disagree. A lot of people might give them other ratings. And that's cool. Trying to just be pretty honest and upfront with my observations and how I rate them based on the things that I feel are important. A lot of people want to know, should you get the Walther PPX or the Walther PPQ? I say, I choose.